Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining us on Black Ink Cinema's podcast. I appreciate you are a super busy man working for the world's largest movie magazine since 2001.
That's correct. Yeah, I feel really old. Thank you for that.
And also hosting your own podcast.
Yes, that makes me feel younger. Podcasts. Yeah. It's what the kids are into these days. Yeah, I host the Empire Podcast as well, which is the podcast arm of the world's biggest movie magazine. And yeah, that's a lot of fun.
On that note, who was the last person you had on your podcast?
Well, I interviewed Shailene Woodley about an hour and a half ago.
Oh, wow.
And I'm interviewing Seth Rogen tomorrow night.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, I hope so. Otherwise, because I'm going to bring nothing to that party whatsoever. It's all on him. Seth, you got to be funny, man, for 20 minutes.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm just going to turn my microphone off, Seth, and you go.
He's got the memo now, so he knows.
But that laugh of his, I can't wait to hear it.
So comedic, like he just sounds funny. He's one of those people that just sounds hilarious.
Yes, he's got funny bones, as they say.
And so how is the pandemic affecting you? And obviously you're still doing your podcast and stuff, but are you able to work normally?
Yeah, it's been crazy busy for me actually during the pandemic. Yeah, my workload has increased at least threefold, and I have no idea how the hell that happened, and I'm furious about it. But yeah, it's been good. You know, lots of stuff for the magazine, lots of stuff for the podcast, lots of special podcasts, all this sort of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay, what about yourself?
It's the same as well. I've been working from home since lockdown, so nothing has really changed apart from four walls that are driving me mad a little bit. But yeah, it's the new normal, I guess. So
yeah.
We're here.
Yeah.
I'm sure as a critic, a few of your reviews for films that you were looking forward to have been delayed. Is there any films that you were looking forward to in the summer that have now been put on hold?
Oh man, yeah, geez. It's been absolutely wild in terms of the stuff that's been pushed back. So, by now we would have seen Tenet, which I was really looking forward to. We would have seen, God, what else? We would have seen Black Widow. We would have seen Wonder Woman 1984. I guess, that's like, I'm focused on the big, I'm focused on the big blockbusters. That's how I work. Yeah, we would have seen loads of really interesting blockbusters. Top Gun, Top Gun Maverick would have been out by now. We'd get to see Tom Cruise risk his life again. Jesus, that'd been wild.
Where can we find you on the socials? Are you more of a Twitter guy, Instagram? Where are you at?
I'm on Twitter. I'm at Chris Hewitt on Twitter, and I'm at slightly more complex CTAH1976 on Instagram, where I'm perhaps less prolific. But yeah, I'm always on Twitter.
Okay, cool. So since Black Ink Cinema is all about celebrating Black cinema in front and behind of the camera, we asked you to select and discuss one of your films, and you chose the iconic deep cover with Jeff Goldblum and Laurence Fishburne, also known as Larry, in this. Tell us why.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it, by the way, that he's Larry in this. Yeah. This is because he went... Yeah, because I think it was after this, I think he officially changed his name and wanted to be called Laurence. I'm now called Laurence. I think it was around the time he got nominated for an Oscar for What's Love Got to Do With It. And I think it was...
forgiven him for that.
Sorry?
I still haven't forgiven him for that.
I can see that. But yeah, no, he's really interesting. But he's had an incredible career up until that point. Where he'd obviously been in Apocalypse Now, and God, I remember him things like Nightmare on Elm Street 3, and I always knew him as Larry Fishburne. And then he's in Deep Cover, which I saw when it came out back in 1992, 1993. And this is before he became Laurence, obviously. And I loved this film from the first moment I saw it. And whenever you guys got in touch and said, would you like to choose a film to talk about? A lot of potential candidates raced through my head. One of which was Blade. But I think I've banged on about Blade enough on other podcasts over the years. And for some reason, there's so many different candidates jostling for position. And for some reason, Deep Cover just went, hey, over here, me, Deep Cover. Hello, you remember me? You love me. And I went, oh, yeah, I do. So, yeah, this is a tremendous film. And revisiting it was really wild and a bit of an eye opener in, you know, things that I kind of didn't notice or took for granted whenever I first saw it back in 1992. Just feel really relevant and really pertinent now. But yeah, it's just this is a cracking thriller. And I'm glad you used the word iconic, because I kind of feel that not many people know this movie.
I mean, I have to be honest. I think I've watched this millions of years ago. And then when you suggested it, I was like, I'm sure I have. But watching it, I was like, no, nothing is in there.
Yeah.
But it instantly reminded me of Snowfall, which I love. And I feel like, oh, they watched that. And that's the basis of Snowfall. It was like...
Yeah.
Makes sense now.
Makes sense. Everything is all one great big circle of life, isn't it? Yeah. No, for a lot of people, deep cover has gone deep cover. That's the problem. It's like, you know, I know so many people, so many, you know, even in the world that I, you know, work in film journalism, not a lot of people have seen this movie, and so I'm constantly saying to people, "Have you seen Deep Cover? It's great." And but yeah, this reawakened my love for it. It's really good. Really good film.
A really good action thriller, like just blood and gore, gangster slash. Yeah, it had a bit of everything in there. And I like the fact that this was his role after Boys in the Hood, so it's completely different. Quite like the fact that Laurence Fishburne was able to take a leading role after that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at his career, you know, it had been a bunch of supporting roles up until that point. He's a really good actor. Whenever Boys in the Hood, you know, hit big and broke out, I think he was one of the people who really got a bump up from it. And I was doing, you know, some research, minimal amount, and I discovered an article in the LA Times from 1992, which was about the making of Deep Cover. And, you know, it's really fascinating because they talk about how initially it was about a white cop.
Yes.
And it is based on a true story. It's based on a real cop and his real experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although I don't think he's credited in the movie itself. And then they decided, you know, the producers and, you know, they got together and they decided, you know, in the wake, and it's a bit cynical, obviously, but in the wake of the success of, you know, films like Do the Right Thing and Boys in the Hood, they decided to, maybe we can aim this at the black film goers market. And so they decided to switch the race of the lead character. And you know, they got Bill Duke on board to direct. But what's really interesting in the article, they talk about, you know, they didn't really have a lot of options at the time in terms of bankable actors who could have anchored a movie like this. And so they offered the role to Denzel, apparently. You know, it's a no-brainer, I guess. Yeah. And then he said no. And then they were like, well, okay, we've got maybe two choices left, and one of those two choices was Larry Fishburne, and this is his first major lead role in a movie, and he just absolutely smashes out of the park.
Very grounded and, you know, very focused, and he carried it really well.
Yeah, he brings incredible depth to this guy, you know, because I think on the page, you know, this is your kind of standard, almost cliched journey in a way, isn't it? It's you know, it's a cop. It's a guy who is driven to become a cop because of stuff that's happened in his past. In this case, you know, we see his dad getting, you know, shotgunned to death outside a convenience store in the first 3 minutes on Christmas, no less. I mean, Jesus, you know, happy Christmas.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then obviously he's driven to become a cop after that. And, you know, by the sense, not necessarily of wanting to do the right thing, you sense, but also, you know, he's driven by this traumatic incident that happened in his life. And then obviously as he goes, you know, undercover, he gets in and over his head. Yeah. And this is something we've seen loads and loads of times in so many movies over the years. But there's a different edge to it in Deep Cover. There's a really interesting frisson as well, which I think
he becomes a thing he's trying to avoid, which was precisely interesting.
Yeah, precisely.
And the other surprise act for me has to be Jeff Goldblum. I was not expecting that performance, and I personally found the casting quite interesting because he wouldn't be my go-to, I don't know, like gangster, I don't know, like shady kind of, it was very interesting. And by the end of it, he was like fully immersed in this crazy mob life.
Yeah.
Quite hilarious. And he's quite comedic, but you're supposed to be taking him serious.
Well, yeah, it's really interesting because, again, Goldblum is one of those guys who he's been around forever. I mean, both he and Laurence Fishburne, although I interviewed him once and he told me to call him Fish. I was like, oh, hello, sir. And he went, call me Fish. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll call you Fish. Of course you will. But he and Fish, I'm going to call him Fish from now on. He and Fish kind of came up around the same time. They're both in movies towards the end of the 1970s. You know, Fishburne's in Apocalypse Now. Goldblum's in the likes of Death Wish, Blink and You'll Miss Him. And you probably shouldn't even watch that film. It's reprehensible. But, you know, he's in Invasion of the Body Snatchers. And then they're both kind of bubbling under in the 80s. Goldblum became more of a star, I think, because he was in things like The Fly and, you know, and whatnot. But this is before Jurassic Park. This is 1 year before Jurassic Park really kind of puts him over the top. Then he gets Independence Day and stuff. So I don't know that, you probably know Jeff Goldblum as the kind of weird, esoteric kind of, hey, I'm Jeff Goldblum guy. And that's kind of who he is, but he's also a really, really great actor. And I love him in this movie. He's fantastic. You know, he kind of captures this sort of the darkness of this guy. Can we take a second as well to mention the fact that he's called David Jason in this?
Yes. Only Fools and Horses for the British people out there that will get that. You could have written it, really.
I mean, why couldn't he have been called? So he's David Jason, and why couldn't because Fishburne's character, whenever he becomes an undercover cop, he has to, or whenever he becomes undercover, he takes an assumed identity. Why couldn't he have been Nicholas Lyndhurst? I mean, it could have been just the two of them together, Yeah, it would have been cushy. Absolutely cushy, selling, secondhand LPs down the market instead of doing drugs. That's what I want to see.
They were basically on the same path. Yeah, it was in the same way. It's fine.
It's pretty much the same thing. Yeah. That's what I want to see. I want to see Only Fools and Horses reboot with Laurence Fishburne and David Jason. Laurence Fishburne and Jeff Goldblum. That'd be incredible.
Oh my God, they should do a cameo. That'd be brilliant.
Oh my God, they shouldn't they? That'd be great. But that always threw me because right from the beginning when I saw deep cover, it was like, oh, this guy's called David Jason. That's funny. But now I know that whenever you write any script and you name a character, whatever it is, say someone said, oh, I've got a script and I want to call a character called Chris Hewitt. You have to clear that. You have to you have people in your production company who have to ring up around and go, oh, hey, Chris Hewitt, we got a character in this movie. Yeah, he's a drug dealer. Yes. You don't want him to call us that. Okay, we'll have to change the name. So did they only call American David Jasons?
You're right. They must have been like, yeah, that's fine. That's totally fine. Knock yourselves out.
Yeah.
What is he? It's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, he's a lawyer, but he's a drug dealer. Okay, yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
Yeah, it was quite confusing, and he had some amazing one-liners in there as well. Like some of the things he was coming out with. That scene in the limo.
Yes.
Had me in stitches. Like I couldn't stop laughing.
It's tremendous. He has one of the best deliveries of the word motherfucker.
Barbecue shrimp, motherfucker.
Motherfucker. And it just goes on for ages as well. I just love him in this movie. I mean, I think he's funny initially, and then as he becomes increasingly deranged, he's less funny. But there are things like when he's sitting with his wife, who we barely see, but he's going, I always quote this line: "I'm going to have my cake and eat it too." And I said in that way. And there's some great line readings in this. I mean, I love the way that Fish, my good friend Fish, my old pal Fish, right at the end, when he does he suddenly clicks back into being a cop and he starts saying, you have the right to remain silent. But I also loved a bit whenever the good cop, Taft, is dying. And David shoots him and Fish goes, oh, you shouldn't have done that, David. You shouldn't have done that. And it's like, that's a line reading that always sticks in my head. It's just beautiful.
that scene when he's like, oh no, I was playing bad, but I'm actually a good cop, but I draw the line here. This good man. I was like, a little bit too late, but okay, we'll go with that.
Precisely. This is where you draw the line? Yeah, this is where I draw the line.
This right here. His voiceover as well, carrying throughout the movie, was a little bit monotone for me, but I get it. It was supposed to be serious and very noir-esque, like detective from back in the day vibe that I was getting. I don't know. Is that what you got?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's definitely tinges of film noir in this. It doesn't really have a femme fatale. I think the female lead in this is underdeveloped, and it's very much about the relationship between David Jason and Nicholas Linter. No, David Jason and Russell. It's very much about them. But yeah, there are all sorts of little visual cues or kind of throwbacks. It's beautifully shot, by the way. I mean, it just looks gorgeous. It's drenched in reds and blues, and it's just it's a lovely, lovely looking movie. Yeah. But yeah, it's got a real kind of film noir vibe to it. I'd forgotten actually that it is narrated. That we hear Russell's thoughts, and it's kind of really interesting. Like towards the end, he kind of starts speaking in poetry.
Yes, Iceberg Slim,
I think it's I remember looking it up as well. Hang on, I've lost the name of the
it's poetry from Iceberg Slim.
Yeah, Iceberg Slim, and then I think there's also something as well from a novelist called Donald Goines as well. So he's quoting some poetry from him also. It's just it's wonderful though. It's just the way because he's just the way it throws you in, and he's very, very aware of. I think Russell in this movie is a very conscientious guy. He's very, very aware of, his history, and the way he throws it in is quite interesting, I thought.
It is, and I guess because of his history, do you think that both of them seeing tragedies and people die when they were younger, Jeff Goldblum's character and Laurence's, that it's them allowed them to push boundaries or want to push boundaries, but also be on the right side of the law for Laurence Fishburne's side? Like he probably didn't want to become like his dad, but it feels like it's come full circle in terms of getting himself in a bit of trouble.
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting the way that he kind of becomes corrupted.
Yeah.
Because he has that almost get out of jail free card, which is, I'm doing this for the right reasons. Because he's very aware as a cop, and also as someone who had his father was a thief and a junkie, and he died very, very young as well. He's very aware of the damage that crime and poverty and drugs has wreaked upon the Black community where he grew up, and obviously now in LA as well. And so he has this lie that he tells himself when he's an undercover drug dealer, essentially.
Yeah.
That he's pushing this poison back onto the streets, and he's pushing this poison into people's bodies. But he tells himself that he's not really doing it. And he tells, it's not me. I'm an undercover cop. I'm doing this for the greater good. I'm doing this for the right reasons. And then gradually he just gets in too deep, and the boundaries blur almost imperceptibly. And then suddenly, it's at the point where, as he even says towards the end, I thought I was a drug dealer pretending to be a cop. But now I realize that I thought it was a cop pretending to be a drug dealer, but now I realize I'm a drug dealer pretending to be a cop. Yeah. Which is really, really interesting, I think.
Yeah, and quite sad for him. I almost thought that the guy, the random villain that's just a villain to be a villain, the Terminator spandex wearing guy that's going around killing people literally just for fun. I almost thought that he was an undercover cop because he just had this air of I can do whatever I want, Wild Wild West, and get away with it.
Yeah, I think he's there to kind of show that this is what Russell could be if he didn't have a little voice in his shoulder. Because he does. I mean, he has the badge and stuff, and he has this, but he has mainly a voice in his shoulder going, this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right. And, I think that guy, Ivy, the one he kills in the toilet, he's basically, this is what you could become this is what you could be. And so he steers away from that. So even when he kind of gives into the drug dealing, he's not a street level dealer.
No.
He is at the beginning, but then gradually, as Carver, his boss, basically says, get yourself a nice apartment. You have loads of money now. And, and he has lots of expensive taste in art and fineries and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and his you can see the person who was writing it just watched Terminator, because there was a few lines in there. Every time he killed someone, he would just say something, "Hasta la vista, baby, I'll be back." And it was just like, this is serious, You kind of makes it funny after just doing such a horrific act.
Yeah, I'll be back. Yeah, do you see that movie? Rent it to your local video store. Except now, when you're watching this movie, you have to kind of stop and explain to people what a video store is. Like,
and they're like, "What? What film just didn't appear on the telly or in the cinema?" No, it was a thing.
Yeah, picture this. Now, it was a building. It was a building. You used to go into it. There were people there. They would all go around, and movies were on the shelves, and you would take them home, and they would be on tapes.
Yeah.
And then, oh God, yeah. Can you imagine?
Kids these days have no idea.
They're born.
A reviewer once described the film as like Michael Mann meets a Spike Lee movie. Is that how you would perceive it?
That's interesting. I think, I can kind of see what they're going for there. Kind of. Except, Heat is a bit more ambitious in terms of his running time and in terms of the key relationship between crook and cop. I can kind of see that, and it's certainly a movie. I read that article in the LA Times, and it was around the same time, and the producers were very upfront. They said they didn't necessarily want this to be directed by by a black director. That it wasn't top of their wish list.
Yeah.
But gradually, as they started to recalibrate it, they thought it might be interesting. That's one of the things I think is really interesting about this movie, is that Bill Duke, who went on to, people will know as an actor, loads of great stuff, Predator and Commando and things like that.
Yeah.
He's tremendous
menacing
actor. Really menacing, but also really, really, he can play sweet.
Yeah.
He's tremendous. I don't know if anyone listening to this has seen the Steven Soderbergh movie, The Limey. If you haven't, it got a Blu-ray re-release last year.
Okay.
It's tremendous. Has one of my favorite moments in movie history, which is where Terence Stamp is playing a Cockney. He's the limey of the title, and Bill Duke is a kind of DEA agent, something like that, and he's in his office, and Terence Stamp bursts into his office and goes on this rant using loads of Cockney rhyming slang, like apples and pears, stairs, all this sort of stuff, and he's just going on this rant for about 2 minutes, and he finishes finally, and Bill Duke, calmness personified, says one of my favorite lines in the history of movies, which is, "There's just one thing I didn't understand. The thing I didn't understand was every motherfucking word you just said."
Like, Americans and the word motherfucking is like, honestly, if it's not in their vocabulary, then it's not a sentence. Like, I don't understand.
Precisely. It's like, they're very good at saying, Brits, we're not good at saying motherfucker.
No,
we're not.
It's not something.
Doesn't come naturally to us, does it?
No.
There's another word that comes naturally to us, but I'm not going to say it on this podcast, or there are boundaries. But it comes very naturally to Brits. But, I couldn't get away with going, motherfucker. Could you?
There's a few others that I'm sure us Brits would use, but... I'm sure...
Yeah. Precisely. But to go back to the idea of Bill Duke, is, he was, he'd been directing on and off. He'd made a couple of films. He made a couple of films after this, including Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit, which is...
No idea. That's huge. I love Sister Act, and I was just like, deep cover, Sister Act. Okay, yeah, I see the coloration there.
It's a hell of a double bill.
Yeah, that is. Why not?
I'm not sure which one's a shot, which one's a chaser, but you go for it.
I think... Oh yeah, it depends on what kind of night you want, to be fair. depends which way you want it to go. For sure.
Yes.
But I think them having changing the character to Laurence Fishburne, a black actor, and then having a black director, I think definitely changed the tone of the movie. You see, or you hear Jeff Goldblum, especially his character, say a lot of things like, I don't know why I'm obsessed with like black culture or black things. He cheats on his wife with a black woman. There just seems to be a few random lines that he has, and there's a conversation between him and Laurence's character, which I think obviously wouldn't have happened if they hadn't changed the race of the Laurence's character.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. I think Bill Duke came in, and although again I read in an interview with him around the time that he said he wasn't necessarily interested, and this is absolutely something I've experienced over the years, speaking to a lot of black filmmakers, is that it's very easy for them to be almost pigeonholed as what we only make films about the black experience, quote unquote. And he said, I'm not really interested in that in this interview going back, I think this is 1992. It may even been the same one. This is a really good article, by the way, check it out. I got all my information from that article.
Sounds good.
It's a great article. And he says, I'm interested in making films about the American experience. So he said he wasn't necessarily interested in completely kind of recalibrating the script to reflect the fact that suddenly his lead was a black guy. That said, there are things that are in this movie that I think could only come from a black filmmaker, that I think are really, really interesting. There's a scene about halfway through when David Jason and Russell are getting to know each other, and they're getting in a little bit deeper into the drugs trade. And you've established already, as you said, that Jeff Goldblum's character he has this thing for black culture. That I think almost as if it feels a little illicit for him, a little naughty for him.
Yeah.
But there's a really weird scene where he's pushing Russell's buttons using language that is kind of racially charged and racially stereotyped, and Russell stands up to him and goes, you say that stuff to me. And I think it's really, really interesting. And then of course you have the kind of the bookends of the movie is the Charles Martin Smith character, with a group of the procession of black cops that he's trying to recruit. He's trying to find someone who has the right stuff.
Yes.
And his question to elicit a response from those potential recruits is wild, and speaks a lot about white privilege and the feeling of the people of power were able to say that word with impunity, knowing that it would push buttons and provoke. It's really interesting, I think.
I felt like it really set the tone. I wasn't expecting that. And he was so straight-faced as well. Like, what's the difference between a black man and the N-word? And the different reactions. And I felt like it was a lose-lose situation anyway, however you were going to answer it. But he was trying to he obviously wanted an answer that would fit the person who can handle being provoked and pushed or whatever undercover. But at the same time, it's like you've inadvertently you've turned the black man by using him to kind of, for your own, to profit, to push drugs on the street. You've made him become the thing that you're trying to say he's not, or he doesn't want to be, which I found quite interesting. And that agent, he represents a lot. To be fair,
he really does. He says several times, doesn't he, that I am God.
Yes.
And I think that's that really does speak a lot to, again, the abuse of power and the fact that ultimately Russell, he does play the system and he does kind of win at the end. He has a nice victory and he gets to say that line back to
surprising win though. I wasn't expecting that.
No, absolutely.
To seeing that happen at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because you get a sense that I don't know whether it was a reshoot or not. I'd love to talk to Bill Duke about this movie one day, and because I'd forgotten about it. I mean, as much as I've seen this movie, I've seen it maybe half a dozen times over the years, but I'd forgotten that it ended that way. It always ended for me with Taft dying and with David dying and with the cop cars coming in and ending in that really kind of bleak way. Yeah. And the fact that it gives Fish, my good friend Fish, my old pal Fish,
keep rubbing it
gives, fine. I keep rubbing it in. I met this guy. I met him once. We spoke for 15 minutes.
Fine,
it was years ago. We're like that.
It counts.
Yeah, in fact, I've just got a text from him there now. Stop talking about that.
Going for drinks. But
yeah, precisely. Yeah, let's meet later on. We're socially distanced, Fish. Come on, we can't do it. But yeah, the fact that it gives him a win at the end, that he gets to stick one, he gets to put his middle finger up to power and privilege at the end, whilst also, and I really love this little kind of detail, kind of just casually mentions that he siphoned off a couple of million of drug money for himself.
Yeah, love that. I was really impressed with that. I was like, yeah, damn straight, after they've put you through all of that, you better get something out of it. I think he just realised how rigged the game is, so just thought, I did think that was a bit flawed, because I was like, where did he hide the money at what point? Because he just killed Jeff Goldblum's character. He was holding this one on the floor. The sirens seemed like they were about a couple of minutes away. So I was like, how and where did he stash $2 million? Because that's a skill that we all need to learn, clearly.
It really is. This stuff always trips me up whenever I see things in movies about people, like cops, corrupt cops who are on the take, and it's like, oh, I've squirreled away. Here's a $500,000 for yourself. Well, how do you hide that money? How do you launder that money?
Exactly. Like, how did you? Doesn't make sense. And I'm such a logical person. I'm like, that doesn't. No.
Yeah. I think that he. I think there's a line that suggests that he and David took it out of the van before they went to the docks.
But then wasn't David trying to drive off in the van?
Because they still had loads of money in the van, but they skimmed a little off the top for themselves.
Okay, right. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up.
Well, it's rainy day stuff, right? Have a couple of mil just walking around money. That's what it is.
Okay, I see. Got ya. So what do you think by them having that question, or Laurence Fishburne answering it in the way that a N-word is somebody who would answer that question? What did you think he meant by that?
Yeah, it's really interesting, because it's either way, it's derogatory, isn't it? But I think what he's saying is what you think to the Charles Martin Smith character. The Charles Martin Smith character wants someone, obviously, who will not fold under questioning, who won't grab him, who won't pull him across the desk or threaten to punch his face in, or who won't just freeze as the first cop does. Yeah. And he's basically saying, you have a very low opinion of black people, essentially, but I'm not going to play your game.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what I'm doing. And if I were to answer that question, if I were to dignify that with a response, then I would be playing into your own kind of perceptions of what it is and your own prejudices.
Yeah.
I think that's what he's saying with that.
No, totally. And I think we kind of got that from how he handled himself in that situation as clearly the best person for this job.
Yeah.
Also, there was the gay henchman, which is part of the mobsters. I found his character probably the most hilarious out of the lot, because he was squirmish. He's supposed to be like this this right-hand man to this infamous scary guy from South America, and you're screeching when he's beating up the guy. And I was just like, he's rubbish at his job. He's not doing a very good job of intimidating anyone.
Yeah, no. So the little fella, Gopher. Yeah, I don't know why I roughly did that height. Yeah, he was interesting to me. I kind of wondered watching it around this time, because it's been a few years now since I saw the film last. Yeah. I wondered if Gopher and Felix Barbosa, who's kind of the main bad guy, were in a relationship of some kind, maybe. But then Felix, whenever he has that game, a sinister game with David where he's trying to slap his hand, uses a couple of again, slurs and epithets against gay people. So I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't, but maybe he's, maybe he's just self-hating. But
it could be a tactic as well. Like,
yeah, precisely. But yeah, he's really interesting, and the fact that he goes to work for David and Russell immediately.
Like, why is he there and so concerned as well? Like, he's part of the crew, and I was like, he's not someone to be trusted, guys. I don't know. I'm not part of the game, but I can see he's not someone you should have around. Clearly, in himself.
Yeah, absolutely. No, this guy will betray you, but he's so sweet. He's such a lovable guy. And I love the fact that he's squeamish. I mean, this is one of the things that sets this movie apart, is the way that it kind of constantly subverts your expectations in terms of what the characters do and the way they behave. And, part of that is because Fishburne and Goldblum are really interesting actors, really idiosyncratic. But I love that guy. He's Gopher in the film. His name's Sidney Lassick. He's sadly no longer with us. But I love the fact that you see all this sort of wanton violence movies all the time, and everyone's into it. Everyone in the room is like a psychopath.
Yeah, I've literally never seen a reaction like that, and I rewound it like a few times. Like, is he part of this? Or I thought maybe he was just in the bar and just happened to be dragged in, and now it's like, no, he's part of the crew. This is Yeah. This doesn't like violence.
He doesn't like. Listen, if I was in a room and someone was being beaten around the face with a pool cue until bits of everything came out of their whatsits, I mean, I'd be like, no, thank you. I'm done.
I'm just gonna head out now. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, precisely. And also, you've ruined his suit and you've ruined the pool table.
And you can't even say anything. You just have to take it.
That's not good. It's not good. So yeah, that's much more realistic. I like that. I like that character.
Also, we had a little introduction to Snoop Dogg, the music. How important did you think the soundtrack was for cover as well? Because there were so many tracks in there, and I was like, who sampled that? I've heard this before, but I was like, not from this song. I did feel like one of those kids. It was terrible. It was really bad.
He's like, oh, that's where that came from. Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I hate that, because I pride myself in being like, oh, I know the originals. Like, oh, that's a cover. And I was like,
yeah.
Good. Yeah.
No, I think it's really good. I mean, I stayed behind. I watched the credits right up to the end because I wanted to see some of the songs and who they were credited to. And I have to say, this movie should be famous because it has the words "introducing Snoop Doggy Dogg" at the end.
That alone should win something.
Just for that. Now look where we are. He's doing adverts for a money supermarket and whatnot, and it all started here in Deep Cover.
Just eat. From Deep Cover to Just Eat.
Just eat. That's it. Couldn't remember what it was. Just Eat. That's it. Because
I had to double take when I saw the advert. I was like, wait, what? How much did they pay him? That's like the coolest advert ever.
Tell me, come on, Snoop, you must still be getting some Deep Cover royalties, right? You don't need to do Just Eat adverts. What's going on? Honestly.
Money's green. It's like, I'll take it. Yeah.
But yeah, the soundtrack's really, really great. And the score is also really, really cool in this movie. It is by Michel Colombier. And it feels very, very cool and very, very, I think, kind of unlike other scores from film, crime films from around the early 90s.
Yeah. You did touch upon something earlier, which I'm surprised that I didn't bring it up, was the lack of development for the female characters.
Yeah.
It feels like very much a boys' club watching this. Like, we only care about the guys. Ladies are just an additional, like the lady who works with the artifacts, the black woman, she just seems high all the time. And then the other, I think she's Latino, Hispanic lady who ODs in his apartment with the little kid. Oh, God, the little kids, that was just like, that relationship melted my heart. It was like so sad at the end. I nearly shed one tear.
Just one tear. One tear.
Just one. That's all I had in reserve.
That's all you're getting. Sorry, I've just got one tear.
I just thought, and the wife as well. She just Jeff Goldblum's wife seemed very oblivious and just let him do whatever he kind of once. Like no one was developed. None of the female characters were developed at all.
Yeah, I have to say that's very, very sad. That's very symptomatic of movies. It is of movies like this that very often female characters are an afterthought. My colleague at Empire, Helen O'Hara, sometimes has a theory that female leads in movies like this exist only so that audiences won't think that the two male leads are in a relationship.
Oh, yeah, it did feel like a filler. It did feel like no, guys, they're
which is kind of strange, but yeah, I can see that. I can see studio heads going, hang on a second, wait, panicked studio heads in the early 90s going, we need a woman in here. We need a woman in here. Oh my God, get a woman in here. But she's not developed, and she's so Betty is the name of the main character, and she's underdeveloped to the point that whenever Russell turns to David and goes, "If you hurt her in her head, I'm going to kill you, David." You go, "Really? You've slept with her once?"
It was when she turned up at the end. I was like, "Guys, it's really not that deep. Like, how did it?"
It's a hookup. That's all it is.
Yeah. It's casual. Let's not put our lives on the line here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether he wanted her for her masks. I think that's all it was.
Masks, did he?
No. He should have at the end. It should have been him and David in those masks doing the heist.
Exactly. Yeah, pretty disappointed in the lack of care.
Needs more masks, but this is pre-superhero movies, I guess. So nowadays,
to be honest with you, yeah,
but she's just kind of, she's a good actress, Victoria Dillard, but not a great character, I would say.
No,
and they also get one of those really cliched, horrible late 80s, early 90s sex scenes where you're kind of almost expecting everything to be in slow motion, and it's kind of weird where one character takes her top off and then for a bit of gratuitous nudity, and then in the very next scene, as they're making love, they're wearing clothes again.
That makes total sense. I love how the build-up's always so awkward. It just feels like, it's going to be another 5 minutes before anything happens, isn't it? Like, it's like, come on, guys, let's wrap up.
Cut to the chase.
So if you had to direct people to watch a clip of this movie to entice them to watch the movie, what clip would it be and why?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. That's a very good question. I really like the scene. There's a number of good scenes, but I really like the scene where Felix Barbosa is hitting Jeff Goldblum on the hand in that sort of horrible kind of torture game that's going on there. That's really interesting, and I think that maybe sums up the movie. In a way, and you get to see. Sadly, Fish isn't that involved. Fish, my good friend Fish. Fish isn't that involved in it, sadly. But there's that one I say would probably be the main one.
I think for me it would be the scene in the limo, that chase.
Oh,
giving a little bit too much away, but I feel like that's all you need to see, and you'll be satisfied. You'll be wanting more.
Yeah, it's true. You got a bit of action there. You got Jeff Goldblum going, "Motherfucker!"
Exactly. Yeah.
You got a bloke being thrown into traffic, and then I really need to watch this again in slow motion. And then a really bad dummy being hit by a car.
Oh my God, this is what I love about like the 80s, 90s movies, because some of the fight scenes or the action sequences are so bad, but they're good. Because it's so bad, if that makes any sense. So you just see the worst dummy being thrown and you're just like, I'm going to pretend I didn't see that. You just have to accept it.
Yeah, some colleagues of mine at Empire a few years ago did a thing where they would freeze frame bad stunt doubles. And so like you'd be having Roger Moore or Eddie Murphy or people like that in 80s movies, and they, you know, they go suddenly, Eddie leaps into frame. You freeze frame, and then, oh, that's not Eddie Murphy in the next shot. That's not Roger Moore. That's a man with a bad wig.
And it's just shiny plastic, pretty bad shiny plastic. So what would you give this film out of 5?
Oh, I love this film. I think it's tremendous and deserves to be rediscovered. So, you know, I think it'd be a bit, I don't know, it's probably not entirely deserving of a 5, but I'd like to go in that direction anyway, just because, you know, there's a reason why it popped into my head whenever you guys said, think of a film. I went, oh, okay, that's interesting. Because usually whenever someone says that to me, think of a film, or, you know, what sort of movies have you been on? Even earlier on when you said to me, what films have you missed this summer? And my mind went blank. It was like,
there's so many. There's so many.
But Deep Cover just went, hey, Chris, remember me? And so I really like this film. And first time I saw it back in 1992 and seeing it again for this, it was like, you know what, Chris, you were right. Chris, 1992, you were right. And I'd like to validate your choice.
I have to say thank you for making me rewatch it, because it's now at the forefront, and it's kind of covered how I saw Laurence Fishburne for a very long time, what he did to my girl Tina. But yeah, so I appreciate that. I'll take that.
I mean, he's done a lot of good in movies since. Okay, so
because I think I watched that when I was quite young, so it kind of traumatized me. And I just couldn't separate the two. I was just like, he's Ike.
yeah, we do not like Ike. That's for sure. But what about The Matrix? You must like him in The Matrix, right?
I mean, The Matrix is an absolute G.
All right. Okay. Yeah. What about Event Horizon?
Pardon?
Have you seen Event Horizon?
I haven't.
All right. Well, how do you fare with horror films?
Oh, I love horror films. I'm cool.
Then watch Event Horizon. Stop doing this podcast immediately. Stop talking to me right now.
Right.
Go watch Event Horizon.
That's my homework for tonight. I'm going to watch that. But Chris, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time out to speak to Black Ink Cinema. It's been an absolute pleasure. Is there anything that you're doing at the moment that we can catch you on?
Yeah, on the Empire podcast as well. So you can read me if you want to do that. Where I actually, have time to think about my words. In Empire Magazine, the world's biggest movie magazine. We're on sale every month, and all good and evil and virtual news agents. And but you can hear me every week if you wanted to do that on the Empire podcast. We're out every Friday, regular episodes, and we have loads of specials, and we have a spoiler special subscription channel where it's where people can it's where we talk to directors and writers of movies for a long time about their films, and so I would recommend that. And it's just just $5 a month.
It's fine, it's cool.
It's the price of a cup of coffee.
Exactly. Well, I just want to say thank you again and wish you the absolute best. And it'll be amazing for you to come and join us at one of our Black Ink Cinema screenings. We're back up and running now, so I'll send over the deets. Amazing. Yeah, and thanks for having me, Rachel, and best of luck with this. And yes, I will be there with a mask. With a mask, yes. Not an expensive one that I bought in an art gallery where I didn't have we will be giving some away. So, there you go. We come prepared. Excellent. Then I'm on board. This is the new normal. Yeah. Precisely. But thanks again and take care. Thank you. Cheers.